Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Abigail? Stick around and find out! Trust me, much like this movie, that opening music is better without sound. Hey, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Abigail. The synopsis on IMDb reads, a young girl, Abigail, lives in a city whose borders were closed many years ago because of an epidemic of a mysterious disease. Abby's father was one of the sick, and he was taken when she was 6 years old. Going against the authorities to find her father, Abby learns that her city is actually full of magic, and she discovers in herself extraordinary magical abilities. Okay, so let's talk about what this animal is. I saw a trailer for this months ago, and if you've not seen a trailer and you have the opportunity now, pause me and go watch a trailer for this, if you're able. Because that'll give you some context for what I was thinking and hoping about this movie going into it. Visually, that trailer was just like captivating to me. I was like, I want to be in this world, I want to see this world, I just want to live in this world for however long they want to put me in it. You know, it's a magical, mystical, steampunk kind of adventure, and yet in the trailer I could detect hints of some fishiness in the audio, specifically in the dialogue. It looked dubbed somehow, and yet the words that were syncing up with their mouths, but not perfectly. It was just a little bit off. I was asking myself, what is going on? Is this one of those movies that maybe is partially in English in the original production, and then parts of it get dubbed, but parts of it don't? I didn't know what to make of the trailer, and so I got a chance to see this movie, really hoping that on the Blu-ray there would be an opportunity to listen to the original audio and put English subtitles on. Alas, there was not. Neither is that an option on a digital rental on Amazon anyway. I don't know where else you can possibly get this, but I doubt it's going to have any other kind of audio options. And without the option to listen to the original audio track, or perhaps, for all I know, when it was originally released in Russia or wherever, because it's a Russian movie, maybe this is the original audio track. Maybe this is the intended vision. But it seems clear to me, and all the more clear when I confirmed on IMDb, that many, if not most or all of the actors whose voices we're hearing are not the actors that we're seeing on screen. And so whatever was happening in those original performances of these lines is lost to me anyway. It's completely inaccessible, which is a real shame, and was the single biggest factor in my disappointment and just kind of like sadness, like a bummed out, as much as you can be sad or should be sad about entertainment anyway, I was just bummed watching this movie, thinking about what it could have been. The script, though, before we get to the audio, the script itself feels very vanilla and somehow itself translated. I noticed that and confirmed that when, for about 10 minutes, I just muted the audio on my TV and put subtitles on and just read. Of course, I couldn't hear any of the sound. I would have liked to have heard the score and the sound effects and stuff like that, so that wasn't, really an option to be able to enjoy the movie. But I just wanted to see, how is the script holding up as I just look at that element. And it does feel somewhat vanilla, or very simplistically translated, or just simplistically written. I'm not sure which would apply in this case. It could work for me in the way that I guess a kid's movie script would work for kids. If I was watching this for seeing, is this something my boys might enjoy? Well, yeah, I think they'd be fine with the script. I don't think they would have problems with it. I think that the dialogue and the execution there would make them think, they'd probably ask, Dad, this is a weird movie. Why is this weird? But even so, even apart from the audio issues, the dialogue, I think for a lot of viewers, is likely going to feel odd and simplistic, particularly to adult viewers. The premise has a sort of X-Men slash Harry Potter mashup vibe to it. It's basically a situation where you've got a society where there are these weirdos or outcasts or mysterious people that normal people don't want anything to do with at the very least, and maybe are actually condemned to be executed, or they are outcast or whatever. But they actually turn out to be special and gifted. And guess what, main character? You turn out to be one of them, And so it's definitely that kind of story. There's been many like it. It feels like it wants to be taken seriously, but the script, and much more so, the audio half of the performances, are, I think, just a major obstruction to taking it seriously. This movie, I think, was probably shot in English, although there's a lot of dialogue that happens when we don't see mouths. When they're just showing a reaction shot, then dialogue will keep going from the other character that the camera isn't currently showing. And it just makes me wonder, are there two cuts of this film? Is there maybe one that, like, I don't know what to make of, like, what we're not seeing, what other version of this movie might exist. But it seems to have been shot quite a bit in English anyway, and then was redubbed by voice actors instead of the original cast, perhaps because of really thick accents that they felt like American audiences or English-speaking audiences wouldn't tolerate. I would have tolerated it. I would have gladly taken their thick, accents and put subtitles on if I needed to. I am really convinced from what I was seeing in the performances of the actors that were on set that they were giving more... they were giving better performances for a live-action style movie than the voice actors. The voice actors sounded like they were doing audio work for an animated film. And so, compared to what we were seeing on the facial expressions of the actors, we were getting a whole lot more inflection and expression in the vocal performances. And if you're watching the video version, you're getting kind of a representation of that a little bit. It was weird. It felt really weird. Just slightly overdone, slightly over-articulated and enunciated. It just had that voice actor quality to it. And I think, part of that is because of, voice acting is just a different craft from stage acting or film acting. I think also part of it is just coming from an actor not watching their own face and their own performance. Because when when you're doing that, you can mimic, you can remember the intensity just by watching yourself. You know yourself, you know your face, you know how you express yourself, and you know how to recreate in post production, just the audio ADR, what you did and what you're seeing yourself do in the visual recording. When it's you doing your own thing, that's going to be a lot easier than when it's one person dubbing for an entirely different person, even if it's the same language. What it feels like to me to watch this movie is like this really cool, artistically made movie with what seem to be really solid performances, at least, from the actors, that then gets ruined because it's handed over to the guys at the YouTube channel Bad Lip Reads and given to them to just completely redub, using the original script, not having any jokes for some reason. We're just giving it to them to redub. It really was like watching a Bad Lip Reads with no jokes for 2 hours. It was bizarre. It was bizarre. I don't understand why this choice was made in post-production or, in production if it was, part of the vision at the outset, which I would be shocked to learn. Like I said, the original actors, when I muted it and just honed in on what they were doing, just watching their faces, and some of the subtext and subtlety of what they were doing, I think they were doing some really good stuff. And I think that the audio that goes along with it was probably a lot more subtle and understated, I so much wanted an option for the original voice track on this. Subtitles are included in the Blu-ray. I just intensely wanted to turn off the English dub and read through this thing instead. It wouldn't fix the issues that I had with the written dialogue, as I kind of evaluated that, but it would have vastly improved my experience. I'm convinced of that. So much so that if I discover this movie is ever offered in a newer edition that has the original audio track and an option for English subtitles, I will very likely try to watch it again, because I suspect it will be a very different experience. So let me talk about the visuals, because the visual design, just what I saw in this movie, certainly was the draw for me in the trailer, and it was the reason I even bothered toughing it out and watching the rest of it. It reminds me of Guillermo del Toro's original Hellboy movie. It's a steampunk, alternate history, 1930s, 1940s kind of setting. With those kinds of costumes and vehicles and stuff, and lots of gears and that kind of era of technology, really emphasized and exaggerated in some creative ways. And so I think if you are a fan of steampunk, if you're a fan of the original Hellboy movie, I think visually there's a good chunk that you would enjoy in this movie. I don't think it's worth putting up with the audio, but I do want to really praise the movie for its visual design and the execution on the visual effects too. It's the visual effects, I think, are virtually on par with the biggest American fantasy blockbusters we've seen in recent years. So it looks really great. There's only a few minor inconsistencies in effects, but sometimes there are effects inconsistencies in, like, I remember the recent, what are the Harry Potter movies that aren't Harry Potter movies called? Fantastic Beasts. There was some effects in there. It's like, okay, that's, definitely digital effects, So I would say it's definitely on par with many fantasy blockbusters, released, from the Hollywood system. The look is also kind of has this cold and drab color palette aesthetic, as a default, but then there are frequent splashes of other colors, so it's not like this boring drab looking movie. It's a very colorful movie, but the setting is kind of has that cool drab look to it, which makes the visual effects and the magical moments kind of pop and entrance that much more. So visually, I really, really love a lot going on in this movie, and visually what I see of the actors' performances, I was really enjoying. What a shame. Let me talk about themes very briefly. I don't think that anyone watching this movie is likely to be struck by the themes, because I think the vast majority of audiences are going to be distracted and turned off by what's going on on the audio side of things. But if I were to comment on some themes and try to pull something out, this movie, it trumpets like the Hollywood cliche philosophical statements of 10, 15 years ago. I mean, Hollywood has cooled down a little bit on phrases like follow your heart, but it's like this production just discovered those phrases, We've got follow your heart, have faith in yourself. There's an interesting exchange between two characters where one character says, your faith has no foundation. Meaning her faith in what she feels she's meant to do. And she responds saying, maybe it doesn't need one. In other words, maybe faith doesn't need a foundation. Maybe we should just follow our hearts. So again, follow your hearts. In a climactic moment of the movie, when, she's kind of doubting her calling, but the character that's next to her wants to support her. He says, we're here only because you had faith in what your heart is telling you. Oh, man. You must have faith in yourself, someone says again. And then there's also, this is another one, not as common, but still floating around there very often in entertainment. We've got a dead character trying to comfort another character, that they're kind of saying goodbye to by saying, I will always be with you in your heart. And I'm thinking this is just one of those weird pop spirituality phrases that we say, I guess, to try and bring comfort to ourselves or to each other. But when you really, examine it, what does that mean? Does anybody really want to exist in someone else's heart for all of eternity after they die? Or did they get divided up into multiple people's hearts? I mean, how is this working? How is this a source of comfort when you really think about it? Well, you're not meant to think about it. That's the whole point, of pop spiritual statements like that, So a lot of little annoyances and stuff that I assume were part of the translation or part of the fact that it was maybe written by a non-native English-speaking person or who knows what. Just more elements of the script that did not work for me. So, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, you can guess what I would go back in time and say, Peter, oh man, dude, skip this one. Watch that trailer a few more times. It's really cool looking, isn't it? That's good. You're good with that. Just stop. Just stop. Even all the other things like that trailer that are littered throughout this movie will not be worth it for you to sit through this experience. Hope for a different edition to be released at some point that specifically offers the original language audio track with English subtitles. Then this might be an experience that you'll be able to enjoy, at least to some degree. As it is, you're going to constantly be cringing for the first half and then just kind of sad the second half as you are constantly reminded through the impressive visuals of this movie of all that this movie might have been. It does not have an MPAA rating, but I would describe it as PG-13-ish for fantasy, action, and violence. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell. Anything you want to do to stay connected and share this content with others, I'd be grateful for. You can get info about all the benefits of becoming a patron over at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Again, I want to thank all my patrons for their support. And then I hope you'll join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.
christiangeekcentral.com